This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are today as a country just looking at the parallels that do exist at the time when members of parliament would be able to stand up against the executive and powers that be to ensure that justice is actually delivered,
when you talk about the role of parliamentarians under that Article 1.1 of this beautiful constitution, that we have surrendered these people to a select group of people. Why is it so hard to just do what you said you'd do? At what point do you begin to lie to people? At what point do you surrender, and sacrifice this sovereignty? How do you even wake up, the next day and come and say that I want you to vote for me again? And Honorable Kabando actually has, inspired me in the sense that he's indicated that during his time, they were talking to each other across political divides. Today, when you do that, you're actually termed as a mole. You more or less are threatened. In fact, in some parts, they might even say that you will lose your nomination, political party nomination certificate. It's a culture that I believe as we head towards the next elections, we need to, as voters, now begin to think through it and just ask ourselves whether our votes actually count.
Yes, indeed. And on the hot seat, Barrack Muluka, Secretary General, Democratic National Alliance Party, State of Politics, Chaos and Truth-Slinging. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, Aseto.
Good to see you.
I'm glad to see my brother Osido here.
Asante.
Yeah, I keep on telling you that when I come here, I come as a public intellectual, not as SG.
Let's change that.
But I'm also SG. Much the same way my late friend, Professor Chinua Achebe, was deputy president of the People's Redemption Party of Nigeria.
Yes.
We are in that space for different purposes. Not necessarily to win office, but to bring some level of moral, intellectual, and ethical energy into the political space.
Okay, then let's change this. You all right? Dr. Barrack Muluka, intellectual analyst. Intellectual and moral.
I'm not an analyst. I'm a scholar. An analyst is anybody in the streets.
Trust Barrack to go there. Anyway, Barrack, today we are in Djibouti.
Barrack with double R or single R?
Double R. The other gentleman doesn't know how to spell the name.
All right. Barrack, today we're in Djibouti, a beautiful country. They just elected the president for the 6th time. Right?
Yes.
It is a small country, but uses its port as its biggest resource because it's using it mostly to supply Ethiopia, which is a landlocked country.
Yes.
And in this country, one thing that stands out as well is it holds military bases for different countries. The United States has its military base there, and many have also had issues with it being there. And media, the state dominates media with no private TV or radio stations. So in Kenya, one would say if it's benchmarking on free media, maybe the cabinet minister should come and visit Kenya on how we do it, right?
No, you should ask civil society.
Exactly.
The people called Generation X and the people who are called the baby boomers. How we fought for that space. It didn't just come on a silver platter. As Jomo Kenyatta used to tell us, hata uhuru hatukupewa kwa sahani. Tulinyakua.
Yes.
Na tukawa nchi ya wanyakuzi.
Kabisa. Let's go to the proverb. A person who has not traveled has no eyes. A person who has not traveled has no eyes. How would you interpret it?
Basically, we are being invited to get outside our personal cocoons. Because traveling does not necessarily mean leaving this space where I am now. It really means that I should open up my mind, be able to listen to Ken Osido here, to listen to you, to read, to reflect, having read and reflected, to listen a little more to other people. Otherwise, I have no eyes. There are people who have traveled on my behalf. They've been to all manner of places, the human being is a vicarious individual that he lives on behalf of others, and others travel and live on your behalf. So you learn from others.
True. Well said. Barrack, more than 2 decades after the historic 2022 elections that ended the dominance of KANU and ushered in a new era under Mwai Kibaki, Kenya stands at a difficult crossroad. The country has built the architecture of modern democracy, but it continues to struggle with the substance. On paper, now, Kenya looks impressive. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 is widely celebrated for its progressive Bill of Rights, devolution framework, and checks on executive power. Does it? Courts have at times demonstrated courage. Elections are held regularly. Power changes hands from the outside. This is what democratic success looks like. But scratch beneath the surface and more troubling reality emerges. Where are we today? Especially when we talk about Kenya's politics.
Yes, we have a constitution, a very good constitution, without constitutionalists and without constitutionalism, particularly in the political space. And I think the time has come when we must speak to each other the truth. And we must especially take the truth to power, to those who are in power, and tell them that the country is on the brink. We are in the process of losing our country. Make no mistake. And we must speak with candor, because only candor can remove us from the brink. 20 years ago today, we were more or less in a similar situation. The country was getting into escalation. That was the time when we had the original Orange Democratic Movement dash Kenya, before the ODM that we have known Raila Odinga to lead until last year, and which is now in the lap of his elder brother. There was something that was called ODM Kenya, which Kalonzo Musyoka eventually took off with, together with Dan Manzo and others. And the ODM Kenya was raising the temperatures. They were moving from pillar to post and post to pillar with the kind of political energy that you are seeing today, with the exception that at that time, President Mwai Kibaki remained fairly cool, very level-headed. Now you have got two sides of the political divide that are threatening to burn the country. And President William Ruto and his former colleague and Deputy Rigathi Gachagua must be told very plainly that you are going to burn this country. Go easy, Mr. President. Go easy, Mr. Gachagua. You are going to burn Kenya. And Professor Kithure Kindiki must be told, he must even drop this slogan of his, this clarion call of "Ni fire, see fire." Words are not innocent, and words are not neutral. They are building images into people's minds, into young people's minds. And it's very pathetic that adults who are here in 2006, 20 years ago, who saw these things, who participated, even some of them, who were taken to the International Criminal Court, who just survived by whiskers, are going around the country doing the self-same things. And President William Ruto must be told very bluntly and bluntly that he bears the greatest responsibility within the context and framework of the statutes of Rome that took him to the International Criminal Court. He must know that he's counting his footsteps back to the ICC. If he's not listening now, let those who are close to him tell him that an elder who was here in 2006 called Barrack has said that you are counting your footsteps back to the ICC, and that Kimani Ichung'wah is counting his days to the ICC, and that Rigathi Gachagua is counting his footsteps to the ICC. You are going to be a very rich cocktail of Kenyan individuals in the International Criminal Court at The Hague in the coming days, because they have placed the country on the brink. These fellows we are calling goons are hirelings of these fellows. Goonhood does not just sprout out like the mushroom. You wake up in the morning and you find mushrooms have sprouted outside your house. There is agency. They're serving somebody's interests. And you cannot have a political dispensation where every day is a campaign day, from the day somebody was sworn in to where you are some 4 years later. Nothing has changed. First, the competition was between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. Then they made a truce. They ejected Rigathi Gachagua. Then the competition becomes between Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto. And it's the same volatile campaign. That is not what government is for. And William Ruto especially must slow down. He must sit down in State House. He must read. He must listen. He must seek wise counsel. He must listen to the National Intelligence Services. I have no doubt in my mind that the National Intelligence Services, who are some of the most professional intelligence people in Africa and in the world, I have no doubt at all in my mind that they are briefing President William Ruto on a daily basis. And I have no doubt at all in my mind that President Ruto rubbishes the intelligence reports that he receives.
Barrack, I hear you speak in terms of intelligence reports that the president receives. And I just want to piggyback and just go back a little bit. You remember in 2007, 2008 post-election violence, we talk about individuals who ended up at ICC. It was the political class, sadly enough, the media, and the police at the time. And we sit here today looking at what is happening in the country, because one would ask the question, after all these, even Rigathi Gachagua speaking speaking, saying that he was going to Kikuyu, and there was information he had that there would be goons who've been hired there. One would hope that that enough was intelligence enough for police to deploy in Kikuyu and ensure that everywhere has security and that everybody who's there is secure. That did not happen. We saw Kenyans on roads stopped by goons, extorted before being allowed to proceed. That is an injustice to the people of Kenya, who every day give taxes to take care of police officers. President William Ruto is the #1 consumer of intelligence briefs in this country because he chairs the National Security Council.
If he chairs.
But he's supposed to chair.
He is the chair.
So then one asks the question, Barrack, with the history that we have, individuals who are in office, who ended up at the ICC of being accused of being involved in the 2008 post-election violence, why is what is happening, especially in the political class, not such an important thing to them, it would seem, to ensure that the country is safe?
Dennis, you have fired with multiple barrels, and I'll try to take it one barrel at a time. I'll start with the last one about the political class. You have got individuals who are incorrigible. that you keep on saying things, even as we say, and it could be like you are talking to a stone. In Emmanuel, where I come from, we have the famous proverbial dictum that Elijah Mwangare some time back reminded the Third Parliament about the hyena who greeted a stone. And the stone did not utter a word. And the hyena told the stone, even if you keep quiet, I have spoken. You have heard. We have got individuals who are obstinate, individuals whose egos are so enormous, they are bigger than the biggest mountain in the world, that they feel that they can never retreat. There is a lot of wisdom in retreating. President Moi used to retreat. He would get to a point where he would say, no. Kwa sababu ya, and he would say, kwa sababu ninapenda hawa watoto. Kwa sababu ninapenda nchi hii. Mimi wakati mwingine ninarudi nyuma. President Jomo Kenyatta, after the 1969 experience in Kisumu, never returned to Nyanza. It was not because he scorned the people in Nyanza that he held them in contempt. It was not because he was a coward. It was not because he ceased being the president of Kenya and that he needed the permission of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga to go back to Nyanza. It was because Jomo Kenyatta had the wisdom to understand that the situation in that environment is volatile. And if I go into that environment, I'm going to escalate an already volatile situation. And therefore, for the good of the people, in the interest of wider national peace and calm, let me not go there. That's why Mwai Kibaki stayed away during the 2007 election campaigns. He did not go to Nyanza because he understood the temperatures in that region. That is why Jomo Kenyatta in 1969 did not go to Rusinga Island to bury Tom Mboya. That is why in 1975 Jomo Kenyatta did not go to Olkalau, to Nyandarua, to bury J.M. Karaoke. He understood. That's why in 2017, Uhuru Kenyatta did not go to campaign in Nyanza. It was not because these people held those populations in contempt. By the same token, William Ruto, if he guides himself with any measure of wisdom as president of the Republic of Kenya, would know that the Mount Kenya region is unhappy with him and stay away. He does not cease being the president of Kenya. That region does not cease being his subject and being under his jurisdiction. But as I have said, he scoffs at the intelligence people. He lacks wise people around him. He listens only to himself and listens to the voices of minion sycophants who tell him, twende, kwani watakudu nini? Twende, siweni prezi. Twende, twende. These people, Kenyatta, Uhuru, Kibaki, they all had the police. They had the General Service unit which is called Fanya Fujo Uone. They had the tanks. They had the Black Marias. They had the military. They had everything that President Ruto has today. But there must be wisdom. And I've said, my dear friends, that we must speak the truth in the greater interest of this country. That Rigathi Gachagua, being a gentleman in the 60s, I believe, should have the wisdom to know that there are certain things that you don't do. You do not charge up a crowd, such as the crowd that we had in Nyandarua on Friday, or was it Wednesday, last week anyway, that there's this crowd here, and you're going on and lecturing the president. And the things you're telling him are extremely nasty. That the likelihood of even that president losing his cool in that environment and coming and taking that microphone away from you and even serving you 2 or 3 slaps is possible. And that after that, we cannot predict what could happen. And therefore, Rigathi Gachagua is completely deficient of wisdom. That John Methu, as he goes around chest thumping and saying, I told him the truth, I don't fear him, I'm a brave individual, and all that kind of abracadabra, should know that he's a very dangerous person for this country and for the people of Nyandarua, whom he says he loves very much. That anyone who has praised any of these people is completely bad for this country. That the controller of State House should ask himself whether he's doing his work, whether he's able to tell the president the truth. I can tell you, Dennis, I've had the opportunity to travel on this continent and to mingle with people. I have been present when President Olusegun Obasanjo wanted to go somewhere, and the people around him told him, no, don't go, Mr. President. And he said, all right, if you have said so, I will not go. Let me not disclose the finer details, but that is wisdom at work. That when you are in a certain office, by dint of being in that office, you must have around yourself courageous, but respectful, but courageous individuals who will tell you the truth, and you must be willing to listen to them. Don't listen to children like Dennis Itumbi, who are sitting there and they are telling you what to do, what to do.
No, Barrack,
so finally, because he shot with several barrels, what do we want the police to do? We must cut them some slack. You know, the police can only contain us when we are willing
to be contained.
To be contained. When we are unwilling to be contained, there's nothing the police can do. We will overrun them. The police are even endangered in this country because the political class foments volatile situations, and we expect that the police, by just being present, they are going to contain. What are they going to do? They're going to club us. Then we are going to complain that they clobbered us, or they are going to shoot us in the legs. Then we are going to complain that they shot us in the legs. What do we want the police to do?
And in raising those very critical concerns, the context that we are seeking to engage in, or that we are engaging in, is a political one. And in this discussion and others, we have taken pride in a very progressive constitution, that has also been borrowed from other jurisdictions. And in these other jurisdictions, you probably do not see the kind of political attacking or attacks that we see, where truth is actually being, slinged, and you wonder, can't the CS just resign? Can't that PS just leave? Can't that politician just, can't you be called to order by your political party? In other jurisdictions, we have seen people who really bear the brunt of accountability leaving office. In Kenya, when people raise accountability questions, we throw backwards narratives. We build narratives and we throw words and we are like, ulifanya, nilifanya, alikosa kutenda, etc. Yet, Barrack, we are priding all these things to a very strong democratic kind of context that has a very progressive constitution that is supposed to indicate what happens, when it happens, and who does what. But then the question that begs is, does the political discourse of Kenya often descend into why must it always descend into attacks rather than policy debates where you have a government and the opposition? When do we begin to see opposition raising responses or answers to critical questions that the people are asking the government, but instead the truth slinging continues?
The truth of the matter, picking up from where you live, Asido, is that the Constitution of Kenya, progressive as it is, for the political class in the country, the Constitution of Kenya is cosmetic. It's just a nice thing to have there.
One former AG called it poetry.
Yes, and I'm a student of poetry and a publisher of poetry.
Yes.
Also. The Constitution of Kenya, as far as these people are concerned, is cosmetic. It can be invoked as and when it serves their short-term, their passing, their transient interests. Beyond that, it's of no value. These are people whose philosophy of government, whose epistemic foundations about leadership are about serving the self. They're about eating. That is why someone said it is our turn to eat. And when you look at the political opposition in Kenya, and you look at the governing class in Kenya, they are mirror images of each other. They are all about political power bargaining, elite power bargaining. That you will have this, I will have this, you will have that. That's why you see these people here on the front pages, trouble in Ruto ODM union.
Yeah.
That is what one of the headlines in today's papers is reading like. There is no ideological, visionary unity of purpose. That this is the country we want, that when we look at this Kenya in 100 years' time, when we are not here, this is where the country should be, and this is what we will be remembered for as the people who are the custodians for the time being 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 15 years ago. They are about what I can get. And hence, when you hear that there are mining prospectors in Ikolomani, in Western Kenya or in Homa Bay, then the first thing that State House wants to do is to buy shares in the company that is going to be mining in Kakamega or in Homa Bay. And the first thing that State House wants to do is to relocate the people from that space. And when they resist, the next thing State House wants to do is to shoot them. The next thing State House wants to do is to bring in oil, cooking oil, petroleum, sugar, rice, fertilizers, scam after scam after scandal. That is the understanding of why you're supposed to be in government. In other words, we have people who are completely bereft of the smallest residues of ethical and moral considerations in government. So when you tell them that the Constitution would dictate that you should resign, you should step aside, they don't understand what you are talking about, because that is not why they are there. They are there to eat. And then they are there and using the tribal population as cannon fodder. Ati mtaona. That is why John Medhu will tell the president, ambia Kimani Ichung'wah ule anatukana Rigathi Gachagua kila siku, tell him now, mwambie sasa mtukane aone. Mwambie sasa amtukani, because he's feeling that he's now in an environment where he has his cannon fodder, na kwamba wanaweza kurarua Kimani Ichung'wah katika hayo mazingira. And Kimani Ichung'wah tells them, tutakutana huko Kikuyu. And even the president himself is telling these people in Ol Kalou that tutakutana hapo mbele. My goodness, this is the Ofafa Jericho where I grew up in Eastlands, where we used to tell the boys in Ofafa Maringo, musi step Jerry, tukiwangam Jerry, mutadim, mutadim, musi step Jerry, tumewawekea wanted. And then there are some fellows wanasema, kanyaga ololo, utangam. You have some fellows who are calling themselves the Baluchistan army in Mbotela. Asema, fika Mbote. That is where the topmost leadership of this country has now placed us. That we are talking about a country in the hands of goons.
And Barrack, this then brings forth citizens' responsibility. Why do I bring that? Because you mentioned the police can only contain us if we want to be contained. That speaks of citizens' responsibility who know they are placed in this political discourse. Because if we as citizens are the ones who allow ourselves to be used as goons, you allow yourself to be given a few hundreds of thousands to go attack a senator, who's having coffee in a restaurant. You allow yourself to be paid a few hundreds to go on the road, to block individuals from coming to your locale. You are the ones who are seated when these political class are throwing barrages that would burn this country, and you're there clapping and say, yes, utadu, What is the responsibility of Mwananchi in all this discourse to be level-headed and to be the bigger person and say, on this one, we say no. On this, we do not allow to be used, because we will point fingers at the political class for what it is they say, for how they misuse public funds. But if we are the ones who keep on queuing to receive these 500 shillings, being bribed by the political class, are we as well, should we take responsibility and say, and come back and say that because this is our country, we will do right by the Constitution and are the ones that will save this country from the mess that we see from the political class?
You see, my brother Dennis Aseto, my brother Ken Osido.
Yes.
It depends on whether I have eaten. I have food at home or not. To be given money by anybody, no matter how much money they give you, is humiliating.
Yes.
If someone gives you 100,000 shillings that you have not worked for, it is humiliating. If someone gives you 1,000,000 shillings that you have not worked for, you feel humiliated. You feel inferior to this person. They place themselves in a position where they lord it over you. So nobody really wants to be given handouts. To be given especially 200 shillings, and to be given 200 shillings so that you go to beat up someone is humiliating. You feel like you have been dehumanized. Umerudi chini kidogo, umedunishwa. So these are things which people do, and they blindside a portion of their intellect. They accept to be reduced to that level because this fellow is thinking about the situation at home. That we have got all these jobless individuals, we have this idle capacity, a country in which any day you can materialize as a politician at any marketplace and you have an audience running into tens of thousands of people whom you have not even sufficiently mobilized. But they know that when you arrive, there's going to be money, that this money is going to be dished out. People are going to be told to queue Pangeni Foleni, that you have come with fellows who have got inks. Where I come from in Kakamega County, we have politicians who even have a special squad whose role is to issue money, and they come with the inks, like the inks that are IEBC.
Indelible ink, yes.
Once you have been given, they put ink on your finger. And who wants to go and be treated like that? We need to get to a place where the country has got leadership that is thinking about creation of employment, generation of wealth, and we have got what it takes. When you look at these political gatherings every day, how much money are they costing? That every day the president is a rolling stone that is gathering no moss except spending our money. How much productive employment could that kind of money provide? How much in terms of generation of jobs, creation of jobs and generation of wealth, could the money that Rigathi Gachagua and his troops are using create in the Mount Kenya region, in the Rift Valley, in Western, if we even just use agriculture as the foundation of our productivity? How much could we do with that kind of money? How much could we do with it within the corporate movement sector, in the horticultural sector, in the production of quick farm produce, fast maturing things like baby corn, fast maturing things like French beans, that we then sell outside and they bring money. But we don't want it that way because we have got a kleptocratic political class that wants to make money quickly, easily, and they come and bribe us with that money. When you find a legislator who is a lawyer, and not just a lawyer, a professor of law, standing, giving people 200 bob, I would die. I cannot be that kind of professor. I would die. But that is where my country is. That is where my country is. Now, these people, wananchi wa kawaida, then it's as I was coming here, I've come from the Westlands, I've come through the Westlands region this morning. You should just see the throngs of people who are walking. They are walking not necessarily going to work. They are walking hoping they will find work.
Okay.
If you take this Mbagadi Road that we now call Raila Odinga way, just look at the people, the numbers. Get to Ngong Road in Nairobi. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers that are flowing on Outer Ring Road, the numbers that are on Jogoo Road, going I don't know where. Look at Likoni Road. Those numbers, they are desperate numbers of people who are looking for subsistence, which they can hardly find. And so when they hear that there is a political gathering somewhere, I'm not apologizing for them. I'm just describing the reality. If you go to Kakamega, you go to Homa Bay, you go to Kisumu, you go to Kisauni, you go to Nyamira, Kisii, Bomet, Uasin Gishu, it is the same. Now what William Ruto, Rigathi Gachagua, and company should know is that this country is a time bomb. It is a time bomb. They will never have the opportunity to enjoy the wealth that they think they are running after, the wealth that they imagine they are accumulating, because Kenya is a time bomb.
And talking about time bombs, and you look at the state of politics, indeed, sadly described as you have, against the expectations of Kenyans. And this is happening on the bedrock of very strong, legal regime, very strong legal jurisdiction that Kenya has even around campaign financing, against, campaign timelines, against use of public resources for civil servants and state officers, against, the role of the police. We've talked about this in goonism and safeguarding, citizens, utumishi kwa wote, etc. But Barrack, you know that we also have a very strong, Political Parties Act, a law that really governs the conduct of politicians and political parties. We also have a very strong institution, the electoral management body called IEBC. Why is it difficult for IEBC to stop politicians who are seen on live videos and sometimes even vitu kwa ground? It is happening and we are seeing it. Why is it difficult to bar them from running for office? Why is it difficult to stop public officers from using state resources? Why is it difficult to stop early campaigns that you walk into our streets and, businessmen and women cannot do their businesses effectively because so-and-so is coming here and we know that their grounds will be totally distorted. It will be difficult for us to open shops. In some towns, you even cannot board public service vehicles because you do not know when that campaign is starting, when it is going to end, and what might happen in the event that you are caught up in that road. Why do we have strong laws? Of course, there is impunity. You've talked about disregard to the Constitution. But the Kenyans who are listening to us could be wondering, why this state of politics? Why this state of affairs when we have very strong safeguards that are not being put into place? Daktari.
The situation that you describe, my brother Ken Osido, is a situation we could compare to if you get into a beautiful city or a beautiful home with good lawns, with good buildings, with good whatever.
Yeah.
If it is looked after nicely, you could get in and you get through the gates and the lawns and what. Then you get into the house and you find that someone has been using exhausters. You know the things that are called exhausters.
Yes.
Yeah? My good friend, the late fella Kuti Anikulapo, used one of those exhausters one day in Nigeria to just go and paint the contents of the exhausters into the home. Exhausters for people who may not know, because I have to take care of all the listeners and viewers, the audience. These things which we use to remove human waste from the pit latrines and from the tanks out there. What you put in
is what you get out.
Garbage in,
garbage out.
Garbage out. So it doesn't matter what the law says about the political parties, what it says about IBC. If you put rot in IBC, you are going to get rot out outside of IBC. If you put rot in NC, IC, you're going to get rot from NCIC. We have not seen anything coming out. We have seen that, I don't know whether it was yesterday or 2 days ago, new names have been released again for the same purpose.
Yeah.
If in diplomacy that is rubbish what you're putting there, you're going to get rubbish out of the system. So if you put in anything, in the judiciary, in wherever, and the judiciary is under encroachment just now, you can see that somebody is being propelled towards the Supreme Court, or some people are being propelled towards the Supreme Court, so that in the event that the election goes this way or that way. Now, in all this, gentlemen, and I'm sure there are ladies also listening, so in all these, ladies and gentlemen, the picture that I have painted this morning is fairly grim. It's a fairly hopeless picture, but we must always ask ourselves, isn't there a glimmer of hope.
Silver lining.
Anywhere is in there, silver lining in these very grim, cloudy spaces that you describe. The young generations, the salvation of this country rests with the youthful generations. That even a thief can only steal what he can carry, and run away
with it.
and run away with it.
Yeah.
Because a thief who comes and steals what he cannot carry, some of it
will drop,
and in fact most of it, and will catch up with him, and he will take off. So it's the same with the elections. When you look at the Kenya Kwanza government, you look at UDA, you can see that the strategic epistemics are about how to steal the next election. I think they have given up on the possibility that they could win. They're thinking about how they could steal. But they can only steal when the voting is so emaciated. If the young people of this country, and the future is about you young people, Dennis, people like yourself, and my friend Sido here. I've been around for a while. I'm now an elder, and that's why I can speak like an elder, with candor and with measured courage. The future is about you and about your children. It's about my grandchildren and my children to a significant extent. You must redeem your country. You must go out to register as voters. Even IBC will not be able to steal the election for anybody. If we talk about ICT being used, you are now the custodians of ICT technology. You should be able to counter any efforts to steal the election. You must change this country. And young people must go out and register in massive numbers. We have seen that there is interference. We saw that goons were sent the other day to interrupt and interfere, disrupt voter registration
exercise,
in some parts of the country. We should never give up. But my final counsel, because I know you're about to stop me, goes to the people in power. President Ruto is spending his time in futile campaigns because the election is lost. It is already lost. The things that he should be doing now are things about covering his tracks. And Osido here does some legal things and stuff of that kind. He's a lawyer. What the president should be concerned about, and the people around him, is that they will not go to The Hague. And if they don't go to The Hague and they are here, they will not go to jail. The constitution which you're talking about has jailed a governor because of the things he did when he was in power. The constitution has nullified a presidential election. The constitution of Kenya has sent home a deputy chief justice. The constitution of Kenya, too, in fact, deputy chief justices. The constitution of Kenya has nullified elections of governors.
Sent home a deputy president.
Sent home a deputy president. What it hasn't done is to impeach a sitting president and to jail a president. The day when this constitution is going to jail a president is not far. It's going to jail either a sitting president or a former president. If I was the one to advise President William Ruto, I would tell him that you have accumulated enough. Stop. Start now thinking about how you are going to secure it and to be safe with the law. that the country does not take you to The Hague, and The Hague does not pack you away for 40 years, or that another future dispensation will not send you to committee maximum security prison, you and your family. That is how I would advise him. And I would advise Rigathi Gachagua the same way. I would tell them that in the end, as the wise man in the Bible says, it's all futile.
And you see, in Swahili, they would say, mwenye sikio,
Asikie.
ambi
Na
sikia.
nyani haoni kundule.
That's a good place to end. Dr. Barrack Muluka, who is an intellectual scholar, as well as serving as the Democratic National Alliance Secretary General. Asante sana. Kenyans,
Asante.
you have been told where we are as a country, what we must do to the political class. You can do better at exactly 9 a.m. Time for Newswire with Leo Baga. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.